Hi, Lions. Thanks for joining me so we can continue reading Wonder. I can't wait to get to our novel. Before we get started with our read aloud, we're going to go back to our plot diagram that we're filling out. Remember, a plot diagram is when we identify the important parts of a novel or story we're reading, because that's what a good reader does. They're able to identify the important parts and be able to identify what it is the author is trying to convey to us. So we were working on exposition, which is just a fancy way of saying an introduction of the story. So let's get back to it. That consists of the setting, which we already established. That's where and when a story takes place. And yesterday, we identified the major characters. There are minor and major characters. And the major characters are the people in the story, or animals. Daisy in the story played a big part. And they are the people in the story that if you were to remove them, the story would completely change. The minor characters, we're not listing them there on this chart because they help move things along and they're part of the story, but they could easily be replaced by someone else or even removed altogether, and the story would pretty much remain the same. It just may not be as interesting or entertaining. So now we're going to focus on the third part of exposition, which is the overall climate or mood. So let's figure out what that means. We have to know what mood is and climate is before we can start to identify it from a novel. So let's take a look at this document that I started, mood. Has anyone ever said to you, boy, you're in a bad mood? Or perhaps even you're in a good mood. Why is that? Mood is how we feel. And that's all that they're asking for with the climate and when they're talking about mood. So when you read this novel, how are you feeling? So before we look at examples from the text, let's look at examples of mood in different illustrations or pictures. Because if we can figure out what mood we feel when we look at a picture and why, then we can start to apply that to novels or stories that we read. So when I look at this photograph here, my mood, how do I feel when I look at this? I feel kind of lonely when I look at this picture. And the reasons why I feel lonely, maybe even afraid, the colors are really dark and there's nobody there. You're by yourself in this picture. So that would be a pretty lonely feeling, or perhaps even scared or worried. This picture evokes or makes me feel lots of different ways. What about you? Why don't you pause the device and talk to someone at home about how you are feeling and why you feel that way when you look at this picture? Okay, if you've done that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next picture. And let's think about what is our mood when we see the next picture. Wow, when I look at this picture, I think the mood that I'm in, I feel hopeful. And the reason why I'm feeling hopeful is because it looks like the sun is coming up. It's the start of a new day. It's a new beginning. And a lot of times when you have a new day, you're just filled with hope for that day, because you have a new beginning and anything can happen in a day. And something else that makes me feel hope when I look at this illustration, look at the colors. There's pinks and the orange and yellow, the green. There's lots of bright colors. And it even looks like there's snow, but it looks like the sun is melting the snow away. And that just gives you hope that there's something exciting and new that's going to happen. So my mood completely changed with this picture. And it's because of the colors and what I see in the photograph, that sun rising and the sun melting away for a new beginning. Okay, let's take a look at, and I want to say our moods could be a little bit different when we look at these pictures, as long as you can explain the reason why. So we don't have to have the same answer. We're probably going to have a similar reaction, but not identical. And that's okay, as long as you can justify it or prove or explain why that is your mood. Okay, let's look at the next picture. Oh, when I look at this photograph, my mood is joyful or happy, excited. And the reason why, we've got these two beautiful women in the picture and they've got huge smiles on their face. It looks like they're laughing. And again, the colors are bright and cheerful. We've got the bright yellow, we've got orange and green. And it looks like they're doing a lot of work here, but they're having fun while they do it. And so that just fills me with joy. So my mood, I would say my mood is joyful, and it's based on the colors and their laughter, their beautiful smiles, and they look like they're having fun. Okay, this next one. Oh goodness. When I look at this one, my mood is terrified. And the reason why I'm terrified when I look at this photograph, and the reason why that's my mood, is because this little girl looks terrified. She's covering her mouth, almost like she's gasping. Her eyes are really wide, and it even looks like she has creases on her forehead, which make you think she's having a really strong reaction to something. And the colors are dark and gloomy. So my mood is terrified when I see this. Okay, one last one. Phew, thank goodness we're going to end on one that's a positive emotion. So my mood when I see this photograph is ecstatic. Ecstatic is a really strong way of saying excited. The reason why is because kids, the one kid is cheering. He's got his arms up in the air. The girl is pointing at the screen, and you can tell something is making her really happy or surprised, but in a good way. And they both have a smile. Doesn't quite do it justice. They are both just like shocked, surprised. It looks like maybe they won something. Their eyes are really wide, but in a happy way. And the colors, again, there's bright, cheerful colors. So my mood when I see this photograph is I'm ecstatic. Okay. So let's take a look. There are lots of different moods that you can feel. On this side, I have different words to represent moods that are typically thought of as a positive or a mood that we enjoy. Being calm, lighthearted. Lighthearted means kind of feeling fun, not worried about things. Hopeful, cheerful, excited, joyful, optimistic. If you're optimistic, you're feeling positive about things. Silly. That's another mood that you can feel. I love feeling silly. That's a fun mood to feel. And then on this side, these are some moods that we don't always enjoy feeling. Tense. That means you're like nervous. You're really worried. You're scared. Scared is the second one. Worried. Lonely. Fearful. Angry. Nervous. Worried. These are just some examples. There's lots of other moods that we can feel. And so, when we looked at the pictures, the colors and what was happening in the pictures helped us feel a mood. The same thing authors do in novels, but instead of maybe colors, it's the dialogue or the things people say. It's the setting that can help you feel a certain way, help develop mood. So I want us to go back and At the very beginning of the novel, I'm going to read just a few things I highlighted that helped me feel a certain way. And that's all the mood is. It's how do you feel when you're reading the story? It's as simple as that. And then figuring out, why do I feel that way? Okay, so I'm just going to read some of the things that I highlighted in yellow from various pages that made me feel a certain way. So this is Augie speaking, and he says, I won't describe what I look like. Whatever you're thinking is probably worse. I'm pretty much totally and completely petrified. So Augie is feeling scared because if you recall, he is realizing that his parents, or his mom actually, wants him to no longer be homeschooled, but to go to a private school, Beecher Prep. So Augie's saying he feels petrified. When I know someone is petrified, and petrified means like not just scared, but super duper scared, that makes me feel worried because I don't want anyone to ever feel that way. Augie also said, Mom looked surprised, like she hadn't meant for me to hear that. You should tell him what we've been thinking, Isabel. We should talk about this later, said Mom. No, I know what you're. No, I want to know what you're talking about. This is Augie talking now. And then Mom and Dad are fighting. They're in the car and they're arguing over whether or not Augie should go to the private school. And then Augie said, then that's it, case closed. And he was pouting, and he even said, like a baby. And then Mom said, but it would be good for him, Nate. And then Dad said, not if he doesn't want to. And their friend reached over and squeezed Mom's hand, kind of like in a way like, okay, everything's going to be okay. So you can tell everyone is a little bit on edge. They're arguing a little bit. So it's really starting to make me feel worried for Augie and nervous about what might happen next. And then Augie said that she could tell that she and Dad were going to fight about it. And I know, when my parents would fight, it would make me feel tense would be a good word. Like that's another way of saying you're really stressed or worried about something. And then it says, so sending him off to middle school like a lamb to the slaughter, Dad answered angrily. So Dad's angry. He's basically saying if Augie goes to school, that we're setting him up for just a horrible experience. So I'm feeling really worried here. So so the mood I feel when this novel first started is tense and worried, I would say. Well, it looks like I have worried on here twice. So even nervous. So, a novel can make you feel more than one mood. So let's go back to our plot diagram. We're going to go ahead and write nervous, worried, and tense. So that's how the novel started. But that's what an author does. That's a technique. By making us feel nervous and worried and tense right at the beginning of the novel, it's kind of like it hooks us in and it makes us want to keep reading to see what happens. So it's actually very clever that the author did this. So do you see how understanding the literary elements of a novel can help you to become a good writer yourself? So by studying these techniques, not only does it show we understand the novel, but it can also help you to become an awesome author yourself. All right, so let's pick up and let's continue reading. Remember, now we're switching from Miranda's point of view, first person point of view, and the chapter is called Camp Lies. Remember, Miranda had gotten sick. I'm wondering if she was sick or if she just wanted Via to have an opportunity to shine at the play. But anyways, Miranda said she was sick, and so Via had to step in and play the part of Emily in the school play, and she did an awesome job. So now we're picking up, and Miranda had come up to Augie, and they were hugging, and they were excited to see each other. So let's go ahead and read from Miranda's point of view, called Camp Lies. My parents got divorced this summer before ninth grade. My father was with someone else right away. In fact, though my mother never said so, I think this was the reason they got divorced. After the divorce, I hardly ever saw my father, and my mother acted stranger than ever. It's not that she was unstable or anything, just distant, remote. My mother's the kind of person who has a happy face for the rest of the world, but not a lot left over for me. She's never talked to me much, not about her feelings, her life. I don't know much about what she was like when she was my age. Don't know much about the things she liked or didn't like. The few times she mentioned her own parents, who I've never met, it was mostly how she wanted to get as far away from them as she could when she'd grown up. She never told me why. I asked a few times, but she would pretend she hadn't heard me. I didn't want to go to camp that summer. I had wanted to stay with her to help her through the divorce, but she insisted I go away. I figured she wanted the time alone, so I gave it to her. Camp was awful. I hated it. I thought it would be better being a junior counselor, but it wasn't. No one I knew was from the previous year had come back. So I didn't know anyone, not a single person. I'm not even sure why, but I started playing this little make-believe game with the girls in the camp. They'd ask me stuff about myself, and I'd make things up. My parents are in Europe, I told them. I live in a huge townhouse in the nicest street in North River Heights. I have a dog named Daisy. Let me just say something, Lions. Never feel like you have to pretend to be anyone else. You are perfect the way you are. Then one day I blurted out that I had a little brother who was deformed. I have absolutely no idea why I said it. It just seemed like an interesting thing to say. And of course, the reaction I got from the little girls in the bungalow was dramatic. Really? So sorry. That must be tough, etc., etc. I regretted saying it the moment it escaped from my lips, of course. I felt like such a fake. If Via ever found out, I thought, she'd think I was such a weirdo. And I felt like a weirdo. But I have to admit, there was one part of me that felt like I was entitled to this lie. I've known Augie since I was 6 years old. I've watched him grow up. I've played with him. I've watched all 6 episodes of Star Wars for his sake. So I could talk to him about the aliens and bounty hunters and all that. I'm the one who gave him the astronaut helmet he wouldn't take off for 2 years. I mean, I've kind of earned the right to think of him as my brother. And the strangest thing is that these lies I told, these fictions, did wonders for my popularity. The other junior counselors heard it from the campers, and they were all over it. Never in my life have I ever been considered one of the popular girls in anything. But that summer in camp, for whatever reason, I was a girl everybody wanted to hang out with. Even the girls in Bungalow 32 were totally into me. These were the girls at the top of the food chain. They said they liked my hair, though they changed it. They said they liked the way I did my makeup, though they changed that too. They showed me how to turn my t-shirts into halter tops. And we snuck out late at night, and we hung out all summer. Let me tell you guys, if anyone wants to change who you are and the way you look, they're not really your friends. When I got home from camp, I called Ella right away to make plans with her. I don't know why I didn't call Via. I guess I just didn't feel like talking about the stuff with her. Probably because she lied and pretended to be her all summer long. That might be a little bit to do with it. She would have asked me about my parents, about camps. Ella never really asked me about things. She was an easier friend to have in that way. She wasn't serious like Via. She was fun. She thought it was cool when I dyed my hair pink. She wanted to hear all about those trips through the woods. You know what, guys? The reason why Via would ask her questions or would have asked her questions, about how she was feeling and her parents, is because she truly cared about her. A good friend does that. Okay, the next chapter is called School. I hardly saw Via at school this year, and when I did, it was awkward. I felt like she was judging me. I have a feeling she probably felt guilty. I knew she didn't like my new look. I knew she didn't like my group of friends. I didn't much like hers. We never actually argued, we just drifted away. Ella and I bad-mouthed her to each other. She's so rude. She's so this. She's so that. We knew we were being mean, but it was easier to ice her out if we pretended like she had done something to us. The truth is, she hadn't changed at all. We had. We'd become those other people, and she was still the person she'd always been. That annoyed me so much, and I didn't know why. Once in a while, I looked to see where she was sitting in the lunchroom or checked the elective list to see what she'd signed up for. But except for a few nods in the hallway and an occasional hello, we never really spoke to each other. I noticed Justin about halfway through the school year. I hadn't noticed him at all before then. Other than that, he was the skinny, cutish dude with thick glasses and longish hair who carried a violin everywhere. Then one day I saw him in front of the school with his arm around Via. "So Via has a boyfriend," I said to Ella, kind of mocking. I don't know why it surprised me that she'd have a boyfriend. Out of the three of us, she was the prettiest. She had blue eyes and long, wavy dark hair. But she just never acted like she was interested in boys. She acted like she was too smart for that kind of stuff. I had a boyfriend too, a guy named Zach. When I told him I was choosing the theater elective, he shook his head and said, "Careful you don't turn into a drama geek." Not the most sympathetic guy in the world, but cute. High up on the totem pole, a varsity jock. I wasn't planning on taking theater at first. Then I saw Via's name on the sign-up sheet, and I just wrote my name down on the list. I don't even know why. We managed to avoid one another throughout most of the semester, like we didn't even know each other. Then one day I got to theater class a little early, and Davenport asked me to run off additional copies of the play that he was planning on having us do for the spring production, The Elephant Man. I'd heard about it, but I didn't really know what it was about, so I started skimming through the pages while I was waiting for the Xerox machine. It was about a man who lived more than 100 years ago, named John Merrick, who was totally deformed. "We can't do this play, Mr. D," I told him when I got back to class, and I told him why. "My little brother has a birth defect, and he has a deformed face, and this play would hit too close to home." He seemed annoyed and a little unsympathetic, but I kind of said that my parents would have a real issue with the school doing this play. So anyway, he ended up changing it to Our Town. I think I went for the role of Emily Gibbs because I knew Via was going for it too. It never occurred to me that I beat her for the role. What I miss most is the next chapter. One of the things I miss most about Via's friendship is her family. I loved her mom and dad. They were always so welcoming and nice to me. I knew they loved their kids more than anything. I always felt safe around them, safer than anywhere else in the world. How pathetic that I felt safer in someone else's house than in my own, right? And of course, I loved Augie. I was never afraid of him, even when I was little. I had friends that couldn't believe I'd go over to Via's house. "His face creeps me out," they'd say. "You're stupid," I'd tell them. "Augie's face isn't so bad once you get used to it." I called Via's house once just to say hello to Augie. Maybe part of me was hoping Via would answer. I don't know. "Hey, Major Tom," I said, using my nickname for him. "Miranda!" He sounded so happy to hear my voice. It actually kind of took me by surprise. I'm going to regular school now, he told me excitedly. Really? Wow. I was totally shocked. I guess I never thought he'd go to regular school. His parents have always been so protective of him. I guess I thought I'd always be that little kid in the astronaut helmet that I gave him. Talking to him, I could tell he had no idea that V and I weren't close anymore. It's so different in high school, I explained to him. You end up hanging out with loads of different people. I have some friends in my new school, he told me, a kid named Jack and a girl named Summer. That's awesome, Augie, I said. Well, I was just calling to tell you I miss you and I hope you're having a good year. Feel free to call me whenever you want. Okay, Augie? You know I love you always. I love you too, Miranda. Say hi to Via for me. Tell her I miss her. I will. Bye. Bye. Extraordinary, but no one there to see is the name of the title of the next chapter. Neither my mother nor my father could come see the play on opening night. My mother, because she had this thing at work, and my dad, because his new wife was going to have her baby any second now, and he had to be on call. Zach couldn't come to opening night either. He had a volleyball game against Collegiate he couldn't miss. In fact, he had wanted me to miss my opening night so I could come cheer him on. My friends all went to the game, of course, because all their boyfriends were playing. Even Ella didn't come. Given a choice, she chose the crowd over me. So on opening night, no one that was remotely close to me was even there. And the thing is, I realized in my third or fourth rehearsal that I was good at this acting thing. I felt the part. I understood the words I spoke. I could read the lines as if they were coming from my brain and my heart. And on opening night, I can honestly say I knew I was going to be more than good. I was going to be great. I was going to be extraordinary. But there would be no one there to see. We were all backstage, nervously running through our lines in our heads. I peeked through the curtain at the people taking their seats in the auditorium. That's when I saw Augie walking down the aisle with Isabel and Nate. That's the mom and dad. They took their seats. They took 3 seats in the 5th row near the middle. Augie was wearing a bow tie, looking around excitedly. He had grown up a bit since I had last seen him, almost a year ago. His hair was shorter, and he was wearing some kind of hearing aid now. His face hadn't changed a lot. Davenport was running through some last-minute changes with the set director, or decorator, sorry. I saw Justin pacing off stage left, mumbling his nines nervously. Mr. Davenport, I said, surprising myself as I spoke. I'm sorry, but I can't go on tonight. Davenport turned around slowly. What? He said. I'm sorry. Are you kidding? I muttered down. I don't feel well. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm going to throw up. This was a lie. It's just last minute jitters. No, I can't do it. I'm telling you. Davenport looked furious. Miranda, this is outrageous. I'm sorry. Davenport took a deep breath, like he was trying to restrain himself. To be truthful, I thought he looked like he was going to explode. His forehead turned bright pink. Miranda, this is absolutely unacceptable. Now go take a few deep breaths and I'm not going on, I said loudly, and the tears came to my eyes fairly easily. Fine, he screamed, not looking at me. Then he turned to a kid named David, who was the set decorator. Go find Olivia in the lighting booth. Tell her she's filling in for Miranda tonight. What? Said David. It wasn't too swift. Go, shouted Davenport in his face. Now! The other kids had caught on to what was happening and gathered around. What's going on? Said Justin. Last minute change of plans, said Davenport. Miranda doesn't feel well. I feel sick, I said, trying to sound sick. So why are you still here? Davenport said to me angrily. Stop talking, take off your costume, and give it to Olivia, okay? Come on, everybody, let's go, go, go. I ran backstage to the dressing room as quickly as I could and started peeling off my costume. 2 seconds later, there was a knock and Via half opened the door. "What is going on?" she said. Hurry up, put it on," I answered, handing her the dress. "You're sick? Yeah, hurry up." Via looked stunned, took off her t-shirt and jeans and pulled the long dress over her head. I pulled it down for her and zipped up the back. Luckily, Emily Webb didn't go on until 10 minutes into the play, so the girl handling hair and makeup had time to put Via's hair up in a twist and do a quick makeup job. I'd never seen Via with a lot of makeup. She looked like a model. "I'm not even sure I'll remember my lines," Via said, looking at herself in the mirror. "Your lines?" "You'll do great," I said. She looked at me in the mirror. "Why are you doing this, Miranda?" "Olivia," it was Davenport, hush shouting from the door. "You're on in 2 minutes. It's now or never." Via followed him out the door, so I never got the chance to answer her question. I don't know what I would have said anyway. I wasn't sure what the answer is. Wow, guys, do you realize what just happened? Miranda wasn't sick at all. She saw Augie and Mr. and Mrs. Pullman, and she knew how proud they would be of Via. And so she decided she didn't have anyone there to watch her in a play. She was going to give Via the opportunity to have the spotlight and have something great happen for her and her family. What a selfless, wonderful, generous thing for her to do. That is so touching. That is something a true friend would do. Boy, I hope they are able to repair their relationship and become friends again. All right, well, I think that's a great place for us to stop today. I hope you join me tomorrow. Don't forget, we learned today what the mood is of a novel. The mood is how you feel. Just think of, what mood are you in? Good mood, bad mood? Are you nervous? How do you feel? And the way the author develops the mood is through dialogue, through the setting, the actions of the characters. So, and when there's a really strong mood that's developed at the beginning of a novel, it's a hook to get you to keep reading because you want to see what happens next. All right, and in this novel, in Wonder, the mood is that we're nervous, we're feeling worried, and we're tense. And that feeling developed because Mom and Dad were arguing about whether or not Augie should go to school rather than be homeschooled. And Augie said he felt petrified. And so because this was written by first-person narrative, we knew what Augie's emotions were. And when we know how someone's feeling, it impacts us too. That's being empathetic. All right, Lions, we will pick up from tomorrow. I can't wait to see you, and I can't wait to keep reading. All right, have a great day.